Welcome to this lesson on how to set and use standard costs. Standard costing can be very advantageous for budgeting and the management of costs in a business. In this lesson, we will look at steps you can take to set and use standard costs. Let's get started. In this unit, we will look at an important concept used in managing costs and budgeting. Standard costing is a technique which helps you to control costs in business operations. It aims at eliminating waste and increasing efficiency through setting up standards or formulating cost plans. The word standard means a benchmark or yardstick. The standard cost determines in advance what each product or service should cost under given circumstances. In the words of Bakker and Jacobson, standard cost is the amount the firm thinks a product or the operation of the process for a period of time should cost, based upon certain assumed conditions of efficiency, economic conditions and other factors. Some of the advantages of this tool are given below. 1. Efficiency measurement. The comparison of actual costs with standard costs enables the management to evaluate performance of various cost centers. 2. Finding of variance. The performance variances are determined by comparing actual costs with standard costs. Management is able to spot out the place of inefficiencies. It can fix responsibility for deviation in performance. It is then possible to take corrective measures. 3. Management by exception. The targets of different individuals or teams are fixed if the performance is according to predetermined standards. Management by exception means that everybody is given a target to be achieved, and management need not supervise each and everything. The responsibilities are fixed and everybody tries to achieve his or her targets. And 4. Cost control. Every costing system aims at cost control and cost reduction. The standards are being constantly analyzed and an effort is made to improve efficiency. Whenever a variance occurs, the reasons are studied, and immediate corrective measures are undertaken. Normally, setting standards is based on the past experience. The total standard cost includes direct materials, direct labor and overheads. Normally, all these are fixed to some extent. The standards should be set up in a systematic way, so that they are used as a tool for cost control. There are various elements which influence the setting of standards. We will look at these in terms of setting standards for direct materials, setting standards for direct labor costs, and setting standards for overheads. There are several basic principles to consider in setting standards for direct materials. If material is used for a product, it is known as direct material. On the other hand, if the material cost cannot be assigned to the manufacturing of the product, it will be called indirect material. Therefore, it involves two things: the quality of material and the price of the material. The first step then in setting standards for direct materials is considerations of quality and size. When you want to purchase material, the quality and size should be determined. The standard quality to be maintained should be decided. The quantity is determined by the production department. This department makes use of historical records, and an allowance for changing conditions will also be given for setting standards. A number of test runs may be undertaken on different days and under different situations, and an average of these results should be used for setting material quantity standards. The second step in determining direct material cost will be a decision about the standard price. Materials cost will be decided in consultation with the purchase department. The cost of purchasing and storekeeping of materials should also be taken into consideration. The procedure for purchase of materials, minimum and maximum levels for various materials, discount policy and means of transport are the other factors which have bearing on the materials cost price. It includes the following: cost of materials, ordering cost, and the carrying cost. The purpose should be to increase efficiency in procuring and storekeeping of materials. The type of standard used, an ideal standard or expected standard, also affects the choice of standard price. If you want to engage a labor force for manufacturing a product or a service for which you need to pay some amount, this is called wages. If the labor is engaged directly to produce the product, this is known as direct labor. If the wages paid to workers cannot be directly assigned to a particular product, these will be known as indirect wages. The setting of standards for direct labor will be done basically on the following: standard labor time for producing, and labor rate per hour. Standard labor time indicates the time taken by different categories of labor force, which are as under skilled labor, semi-skilled labor, and unskilled labor. For setting a standard time for labor force, we normally take into account previous experience, past performance records, test run result, work study, etc. The labor rate standard refers to the expected wage rates to be paid for different categories of workers. Past wage rates, and the demand and supply principle, may not be a safe guide for determining standard labor rates. The objective of fixed standard labor time and labor rate is to achieve maximum efficiency in the use of labor. The next important element comes under overheads. Standard overhead rates are computed by dividing overhead expenses by direct labor hours or units produced. The standard overhead cost is obtained by multiplying standard overhead rate by the labor hours spent or number of units produced. The determination of an overhead rate involves three things: the determination of overheads, the determination of labor hours, or units manufactured, and calculating the overheads rate by dividing A by B. The overheads are classified into fixed overheads, variable overheads and semi-variable overheads. The fixed overheads remain the same irrespective of level of production, while variable overheads change in the proportion of production. The expenses increase or decrease with the increase or decrease in output. Semi-variable overheads are neither fixed nor variable. These overheads increase with the increase in production, but the rate of increase will be less than the rate of increase in production. Now consider this situation. Mark owns a garden shed business, and has established a pricing model based on standard costs he has set up for his shed building and installation. The cost information includes the following standard labor and materials costs. Labor costs are as follows. A carpenter at $16 per hour, and an erection operative at $12 per hour. Materials costs are as follows. Wood costs at $20 per cubic meter. Metal and fixings at $12 per cubic meter. And concrete foundations at $40 per square meter. Using this information, you have to calculate the costs using the standard costing model for a 18 cubic meter shed, which has a floor area of 12 square meters. It will take 5 carpentry hours to build the shed, and 2 hours to erect the shed. You can try this activity in your manual. However, go to the next slide to view the correct answers. Using the standard costs in the preceding slide, your response should look like this. The total projected costs would be $1,160. This table was prepared by Mark to check the costs on a shed he recently built. The total planned costs was $1,160. He planned to charge the customer $1,660, giving a gross profit of $500. But Mark had some additional costs, some variances, to the actual quantities and the actual rates incurred. These changes had a negative effect on the total costs for the shed and the actual gross profit Mark made on this job. On the next slide, you can see the impact of these variances from the standard costs. Here you can see the impact of the variances on Mark's shed building. We can see that the overall costs were $186 greater than expected, thereby reducing Mark's expected profits from $500 to $314. The use of standard costs is a key element in a management by exception approach. If costs remain within the standards, managers can focus on other issues. When costs fall significantly outside the standards, managers are alerted that there may be problems requiring attention. This approach helps managers focus on important issues. Standards that are viewed as reasonable by employees can promote economy and efficiency. They provide benchmarks that individuals can use to judge their own performance. Standard costs can greatly simplify bookkeeping. Instead of recording actual costs for each job, the standard costs for materials, labor, and overhead can be charged to jobs. Standard costs fit naturally in an integrated system of responsibility accounting. The standards establish what costs should be, who should be responsible for them, and what actual costs are under control. There are, however, a number of limitations with standard costing. 1. It cannot be used in those organizations where non-standard products are produced. If production is undertaken according to the customer specifications, then each job will involve different amount of expenditures. 2. The process of setting standards is a difficult task, as it requires technical skills. Time and motion studies may be required for this purpose. These studies require a lot of time and money. And 3. The fixing of responsibility is not an easy task. The variances are to be classified into controllable and uncontrollable variances. Standard costing is applicable only for controllable variances. In summary, managers should exercise considerable care in their use of a standard cost system. It is particularly important that managers go out of their way to focus on the positive, rather than just on the negative, and to be aware of possible unintended consequences. Nevertheless, standard costs are still found in the vast majority of manufacturing companies, and in many service companies, although their use is changing. There are a number of activities to complete for this unit. Take the time to complete these in your manual. In this way, you will better learn from and retain the knowledge covered in this unit. Many thanks for watching this lesson. Want to learn more? Click on our website to view our range of courses on financial management.